Hello, welcome to the show. I'm Gigi Kopelak, and my guest today is Doc Dochtermann. He is a sculptor, but he uses very unusual materials, which we'll find out about today. I would like to welcome him, Doc. Did I say your last name right, or did I schlep over something?
Dochtermann
Dochtermann,
with
with a T.
Right.
Yeah. So
Well,
Doc,
thanks for having me.
oh, I'm glad you're here. Thanks.
Right.
You come from Chicago originally. You went to
Born
school?
in Chicago, went to the Institute of Design in Chicago. It's part of IIT, and the Institute of Design is basically a descendant of the Bauhaus.
Yeah, the Bauhaus. Just talk a little bit about the Bauhaus,
well,
because
the
I think
Bauhaus-
it's an interesting time.
Yeah, the Bauhaus, you probably know, was formed after World War I in Germany, and what they tried to do is bring art and applied arts together, or craftsmen and the artists. They tried to bring art into the mechanical world, and as a result, the things they produced were a lot different than normal design schools.
Yeah, definitely. There's a look about a Bauhaus, but it was very simple also, wasn't it? Wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
There was at a time when they wanted to eliminate ornate.
Correct. Yeah,
Right.
they didn't like decoration.
Right.
Everything they did had to have a purpose. You know?
And do you feel that influenced you?
Well, I think the whole philosophy of treating everything as a design problem and then trying to come up with a solution.
Oh, okay. No.
And no, I did like the school. At the time, I wasn't quite sure how this would affect me, but it helped me throughout my career.
And then in the end, you worked in advertising for
Correct.
many years. But right away, there was a sculpture that you did in school.
Yes.
Right.
That's right. The first sculpture I ever did was what I called charging bull. It really doesn't look like a bull, but it was most kind of like a bull, you might say. You know,
yeah.
but.
And did you use found objects to do that?
Yes. Well, that's kind of set my tone for my entire career of using metal that I find.
Okay.
Whether it's found objects, or I find them in the junkyard, auto shops, body shops, stuff like that.
Right. And you use you do something special called brazing.
Yes, brazing and welding. Brazing is a process where you take two metals and use a filler metal in between, and you melt that, which has a capillary action, and it combines the two metals together. For instance, a brazing rod melts at about 800 degrees, and steel would melt at about 2,500. So you can't really melt steel, but you melt the brass in between, and that flows together.
Is that
That's
true for
brazing.
the sculpture that you did, Beetle?
Yes, beetle and the bull that we talked about.
The first bull was also brazing,
Right.
and then Beetle. So Beetle is a more recent. So bull was
Correct.
college.
That was 50 years ago.
50 years. You didn't have to say that. That was okay.
That's about it.
Yeah, and then so Beetle was one of the first things you did then when you decided.
Yes.
What happened? You were finished with
Well, again, after my career in advertising, as I was phasing out of advertising, I let my son take over the business. It was an ad agency. And I started doing more and more of this metal sculpture, and I started looking for pieces of metal, and it would inspire me. I would look at an object in a junkyard, and I said, boy, that could be the back of a beetle. And in this case, it was a liner under an electric range, you know, those little plates that kept the drippings and so forth, and they're convex, and it looked like a shiny beetle back.
Okay.
And so that's what made me do that beetle.
That beetle.
Right.
And so right away you decided you were going to use these found objects, or
I guess because I don't have any drive to say, hey, I'm going to make a sculpture today. I kind of know that I'd like to make some metal sculpture, and so I have to look for the parts before I can begin. And it's the metal that inspires me to do the work. Yeah.
But it wasn't your background with painting when you were in school, weren't you?
Right.
You did a lot of drawing. You have a story about your first show.
Right. My first conscious memory of how art kind of influences your life. I didn't go to grammar school. My mother, I was the last child, and she wanted to hang on to me, so it was an option not to go to kindergarten in those days. So I went in at first grade. Now, when I came into the school, everybody knew each other because they hung out in kindergarten. And so everybody, hey, how you doing? And I come in as a stranger. And so I don't know what's going on. I'm looking at my desk, and I said, "That's interesting. It's a desk with a chair. It's one piece." So I'm looking at these things. So then the teacher calls out, "Okay, class, we're going to introduce each other. As I call your name, come up and write your name on the blackboard." So I didn't really know how to write well, or my name, because I was a junior, and they kept calling me Junior at home. So I didn't have a proper name. So when she called my name, I didn't know. So finally, she drags me up to the blackboard. And so now, as a, quote, drawer or an artist, I said, "Oh my God, this is terrific, this big blackboard." And so I took the chalk in hand, and oblivious to everything, I started drawing this gigantic Donald Duck head.
Instead of your name.
Instead of my name. And all the kids in school looking at me, they're open mouthed like, "Oh my God, is that great?" 6 years old, right? And making this, it's a hard drawing of Donald Duck. So I did
from
that.
memory, without copying from.
Right. And so they're looking at me as a hero, and I strut down, and the teacher, oblivious to all this, that it's good or anything, she said, "Well, that's fine, but your name is," and she writes the name on it. But I had succeeded, and instead of being humiliated, I did
So
well.
art saved you in that, which is, I think that's true. I think many artists find that this is the direction they go to because they're comfortable. For me also,
Yes.
I always got A's in art.
Right.
I was
Yeah,
always the one
exactly.
asked to draw in the class, and so yeah, it was comfortable for me.
Right. But that's a story I tell my grandchildren, and they always think it. It's funny. Yeah.
Let's just show one more beetle there. Is that, and that's
beetle that.
Yeah, that was the giants of wasps or something.
Oh, the giant wasp. Yes.
Yeah. Is that a big piece?
Yes, it's about 3 feet long.
Okay.
And the wings are made out of heat registers, the little graded images, and I just cut into that to give an airiness to the wings.
Okay.
The body was a lawnmower engine housing, so that's what prompted. I said that looks like a thorax of a insect, and so I just kind of build up from there.
So that's how the ideas come. You see, you see something in the metal. Okay, one of the things that you are using now are these mower blades, of which you have brought one to show.
Visual aid or prop. And most people, this is the bottom of a lawnmower, and they come in various sizes, lengths, and so forth.
That's a small one.
And and it's not really flat. They're all curved, and they have chamfered edges and so forth. And it's very interesting. And when it turns into rust, it really looks great.
Yeah.
Now,
but you don't bend that or anything.
No, it's too hard.
It is hard.
I don't have a bender. I could melt it and then put it in a vise and heat it, but I don't do that. It's not worth it.
Okay.
But this metal piece, by combining them, by welding them, I use welding for this because it's a thick, heavy metal, and that's electric welding. That's where the two metals do come together without the aid of brazing.
Because they melt at a certain temperature?
They melt, yeah, but the arc welding can create 2,500 degrees, which is required to melt steel.
So do you have a place when you wear the mask?
Yes, you have
thing?
to do that, yeah. Or you burn your eyes out.
Yeah.
Right.
So you have a big place to do all of this?
Not a big place, but it's a place I built on my property.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So one of the first things we have here is Spider, which is a great big outdoor piece.
Spider, yes. The great thing about heavy metal, it can withstand the sun and rain and so forth, which deteriorates metal pretty fast.
Is the rusting an important part of it?
I think so. It gives a nice patina, and I can preserve that by applying like Val oil. It's a polymer type of liquid that can adhere to the metal and stays for about 2-3 years. I can reapply it after that.
I remember many years ago there was when David Smith died.
Yes.
Because he always wanted his work to rust, and whoever took care of his estate decided to paint everything.
I thought it was always stainless steel. I mean, he did a lot of stainless steel work,
No, there was a lot as so you, for posterity, the future, you
Yeah,
want yours to be rusted. Nobody should ever paint yours. Yeah.
And as soon as you protect it with this like Val oil, and you take it indoors, it won't go anywhere, because you saw my bull. We started on the show.
Right.
That's over 50 years old.
But that's an inside piece.
Yes, and you have to take it inside to prevent it totally destroyed, because I think you could take David Smith or anybody's, Calder's, all those sculptures, they'll eventually erode.
Will this erode? Actually erode?
Well, unless you constantly, keep on
but
protecting
it would
it.
make it interesting. Sort of
Yeah.
experiment
Well,
in art, right? It could get all these.
No,
I mean, a spider, especially,
yeah. I haven't touched that spider for 3-4 years. Yeah.
And do you notice it's getting more rusty?
Yeah, but
will it get orangey, sort of?
Yeah,
like? Yeah,
it does.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, that's nice. So and then you have one that's called a little different than the bugs and the spiders. You steel magnolias.
Right. Again, that's all blades.
That's sort of an oxymoron, isn't it?
Yes.
Steel magnolias. Yeah.
Well, it came from the movie. I'm inspired. I'm inspired by, what am I going to call this? It looks like a magnolia blossom, my wife says, and
really?
at that time, Steel Magnolia was out, as a movie, and so that's what I'll call it. Steel
That's
Magnolia.
good. So you listen to your wife.
That's right.
She gave you ideas.
Hopefully.
All right, let's move on because you
Okay.
do other things besides mower blades.
Right.
You also have someone that supplies you with automobile
Right.
fenders.
Many different auto dealers. I go to the Honda dealer in Mount Kisco and JV Auto, which is a body repair place.
Right.
And they keep things out for me. And
they
so
do?
here he comes. So
Okay.
they hit, take a look at this. So now they're into it, So
Do you have a sculpture there?
I did make a sculpture for one of them, yeah. But he doesn't. He has it at home.
Because that would be cool to have.
Yeah,
to
that's
show
true.
it, so it's happening to people's
I
cars.
never thought of it. I'll say, let me place this here. I should do that.
Actually, I heard a story about that. Someone placed a sculpture at one of the stores in Chappaqua, and someone came along and offered it, and he's a millionaire now.
Wow.
They sent him to Switzerland. I don't know. I should know the name of him, but
you tell me how to do that. Right?
Well, leave it in front of the store there.
Right.
So that's Darth Heron. That's one of them that's
Darth
made?
Heron. That was inspired by looking at these two. I had two identical fenders, auto fenders, and I thought they make great wings, and so that's how it worked backwards. From that, I made that.
Well, what is Darth?
Darth is from
Vader?
Darth Vader, right?
Yeah.
Because he was all black, and so instead of calling him Heron or Vader, I said Darth Heron.
Heron. Okay, and so if the fender is painted, do you leave that, or do you take the?
Yes, I do leave it. Yeah.
Okay.
And now, when you braze, in this case, it was brazed because it was light metal. It does burn off the paint, and it leaves a, quote, rust spot there.
Oh, but that's interesting. It could
and sometimes I leave that, or sometimes to make it unified, I
you
spray
paint over it. Yeah. And is it also true with ostrich? Is that the fender?
Ostrich was inspired by something I found, which was a garage door opener track. And it was lying there, and it was...
Was that the spring thing?
Not the spring itself. I use that too, but the track itself.
The track, right.
It goes goes straight, and then it turns.
Right.
And right at that point, there was a little eye in it, and I said, "That looks like an ostrich." And then I used that, and that's how that started.
Oh, okay. So
strange, but true.
Yeah. No, I think it's great that you see something, and most of us see junk, and we go, oh, that's junk.
Right.
But mostly they're animals so far. And
yeah, I do a lot of quote representation.
But we do have some abstracts.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So this the wall composition now is that.
Well, wall composition, it's more or less like Mondrian, who would take, he would take linear lines and the same thing I do. I look for, let's say, some square pieces or linear pieces, and I put them together.
But this is now real junk. This is not.
Yes,
cars
all disparate parts. Yeah, I find gears and other things, like that.
So these are two-dimensional.
Yes.
And let's mention that you're going to be in a show at the Northern Westchester Hospital with some of your two-dimensional pieces.
Yes, I have 4 pieces. Yeah.
Right.
And they are, let's say, 2 or 3 inches deep.
Okay.
So you can put them on the wall.
Right, and that's going to open on October 1st. They'll have an opening, which is great there at the hospital, Northern Westchester Hospital. You'll have some pieces there. They can't show your 3-dimensional sculpture, but you do have a piece there. We'll get to that at the end.
Okay, yes.
We'll talk about that. But and now that you have something that you will use bicycles or?
Oh, I found a couple bicycles, and I thought I'd make one deconstruct of a bike, and I repositioned all the elements of a bike, the bike wheels, the handlebars, the seat, and I just reconfigured it.
Okay, so you didn't have anything in mind that time. You wasn't an
No,
analyst.
I found so many bicycle pieces, and I said, what am I going to do with this? I have to
Yeah.
do something with it. So I
Right.
said, I'll just rearrange it.
Okay, so your process is a little different then.
Yeah, it's always different.
But do you approach it sort of like I would approach a painting? Here are the pieces, and they come together, and then they tell you, oh, that doesn't fit.
Right.
Let me get something else.
Well, you know, I've done painting with, my father was an amateur painter, and he took us out. My brother was also an artist, and so we did, you know, landscape painting. And there you're inspired by the view, right? You see it and you paint it.
Right.
At the time, I never would abstract it. Today, I would look at it and break it down into planes and things like that, you know. But with metal sculpture, I just make compositions, you know.
Right.
And that's what I did with Peekaboo Square. That could be showing or not, I'm not sure.
Okay.
On the screen.
Oh, no, well, we'll put it on screen. That's right. But do you feel that the Bauhaus, the training you had in school?
Yes, their curriculum.
Because there was no realism really in the Bauhaus.
No, they did both. They tried to break things down into more functional ways, you know, rather than art for art's sake.
Right.
But they did take the artistic mentality and tried to bring it into the reality of the mechanical world, you know.
Okay.
So that's basically what their philosophy was. It was different at the time.
Okay. I guess when I think of Bauhaus, I think of Corbusier and the straight buildings and going away from.
Mies van der Rohe was a teacher
yes.
and an alumni of the school, and he designed the campus that I went to, the entire campus of IIT in southern Chicago.
And it's interesting about Mies because he had no training.
Right.
Am I right? He just.
I guess he just had this concept of minimalism or less is more. That was his philosophy.
Do you feel that too? Do you try to keep that less is more?
Oh, it's best for anything, for all design.
You think so?
Yeah. I'll tell you, in one of the classes that we had in visual design, we were limited to putting one line on a rectangular format, and you put it wherever you want. So most people put it 2/3 to one side, 1/3.
Right.
And I'd say 80% of the students did. And then one person put it right in the center. Well, I said, boy, that's unexpected. That is better, right? And then there was a Japanese kid, and he put it right on the edge, and you couldn't even see. I said, oh my God, winner, right? So that shows you, a simple lesson like that shows you how to design.
Yeah.
It really is interesting.
Well, sure, but the one in the middle is to break, you know, that's
to make it equal.
Well, too much symmetry.
But in a way, it is correct instead of being the mediocre 2/3, 1/3, right?
I guess so.
Well, no, that's traditional.
Yeah.
You can't be traditional if you want to be a good designer, right?
No, I guess not.
You
would know with your background.
I use that throughout my career in advertising. Yeah.
That's very good. All right, let's move on a little bit to Fender Flight. I guess that's more.
That again is automobile, fenders.
Right.
And
Why did you name it Fender though?
Because it had a soaring feeling, and it looked like it was taking off. So
Flight. Fender Flight. Oh, I was calling it Fender Fight.
Fighting
I thought
Fenders.
that was pretty good, Fighting Fender. Okay, Fender Flight. So it's so soaring.
It looked like it was soaring. That's why.
Okay. And the auto body, that's very interesting.
The auto body, again, I had these fenders again. I really love fenders, and I like blades, I guess.
Yeah, and you don't put blades and fenders together?
No, because one is very thick, and it requires welding, and fenders are very thin, as you know. They're trying to save money when they build cars. Right. And now everything is plastic, by the way.
It's fiberglass or something, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all plastic, not fiberglass,
So you can't have any car beyond what year?
Well, I'd say 10% of the cars now are made out of metal. When I started 10 years ago, it was 90%.
Wow.
And
10 years it's made that.
It just made that because.
Wow.
And so whenever I get a fender now, I have to glom onto it, because they're gone.
Oh, right. Yeah. So how big is auto body? Is that big?
Auto body is about, that's about 15 feet high.
Oh, it's really big.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And again, I just did it because I had to do it, right? There's no, just to use the metal and see how I can form. It's kind of like the Mondrian pieces, you compose something. Right. Here I composed it with auto
But
fenders.
I think the difference is one is very design oriented, and the other one is figurative. You
Yes,
have something in mind. You're
correct.
making a beetle, you're making
Right.
a spider, you're making
Completely
yeah,
different, and yet I do both
you do
all the
both.
time, and
No.
I think I should focus on something. In fact, I've asked many people, should I do that? And they said,
Well,
no, do what you have to
no,
do.
I think you shouldn't. Also,
Right,
sometimes you see a show of all the same thing, and you go, I can't imagine how the artist can do it. I
right.
mean, just for creativity, you need to do
Yeah.
something. And let's talk about Auto Shark. That's going to be in a show, or is that there already?
Yes, it's there already at Mariana Gardens.
Which is in Armonk.
In Armonk, right.
Yeah.
In fact, the show is concurrent with the Armonk Art Fair or something.
The outdoor art show?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's going to run at the same time.
Okay.
And that Auto Shark is hanging there in a prominent place.
Yeah.
And
Well, you said something about in front of the waterfall, which I think would be
yes,
great.
I'm not sure. He was going to put that. I'm not.
All right.
As of this taping
Well,
right now, I don't know.
I have to go there now and see it.
Exactly.
Yeah, see
Right.
where it is. And then you have a bunch of other pieces
Yes,
there, too.
12 others. Yeah.
12 others. 13 pieces?
Including Darth Aaron. Let's see what else. Oh, Steel Magnolia.
Okay.
Wasp.
Oh, okay.
Colt.
How big is Wasp?
I said 3 feet.
Oh, you did say that. Sorry about that. Okay. All right, so now what about Circle Tower? What are you using there?
Circle Tower. Circle and verticals, you mean, or Circle Tower? Oh, yes. Those are all composed. The names confuse me.
That's all right. I never remember.
Yeah,
I'm changing my titles all the time, so that's okay.
The circles, in this case, are round objects of very heavy metal pieces, which are the basis of the blower fans that the lawn care specialists, when they blow the leaves, not on their backs, but the ones that roll, and they spin. That big large piece of metal literally costs $150, but they go out of line and they can't be used, and they toss them. So I have these $150 pieces of metal there. There's 8 of them. That's $1,000 of metal.
And they would have just thrown them away.
Yeah. And the shape is so great.
They can't be melted down and used,
I guess, but it's too much. Yeah, they don't.
They throw
They will go to scrap yards. If I don't pick them up, they'll go to a junkyard.
Yeah. So, and where are you getting these things?
That I get at Paul's Power in Mount Kisco. Free plug for Paul.
Free plug. Now, let's do a couple ring chimes and spring composition, because they're very different also.
Yeah, well, the ring chimes was, I found these 2 round, 36-inch round circles, and I kind of clanged them together by accident, and it went bong, and I said, boy, is that great. I can make a gong, a mobile, like Calder, and in the wind, when they touch each other, it'll ring out.
Is it loud?
Well, it's not. Well, it depends on the wind.
Is it scary? You're walking through the woods and all of a sudden you hear bong and No.
It's a nice sound.
It's a nice sound. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. That's what inspired that. So I just added the elements. I had to add a round to repeat the theme, but I had to catch the wind, so I made these flat planes.
So is that the only one you've done kinetic?
Yeah. I would say. Yeah.
You're not interested in making them move?
No, it's problematic because of the weather. The rain will rust anything that swivels, so the rain and sun just destroys metal.
Right, right. And this is not painted. This is the colors they were.
You
don't usually
the
paint.
original, the steel rings were stainless steel, and they were.
Okay.
And then I painted the planes because they were too. At that time, I wanted it to be more like pop art look, like Calder,
Oh, okay. But that's not something you usually don't paint,
right?
Except for spring composition.
Spring, yeah, I had that, and I thought it might really look nice and crisp if I painted a nice bright red.
And is that just a lot of springs that are put
yes,
together?
and again, composing, whether it's flat or just using elements all of one kind to see what I can do with it.
Right, right.
And that's the abstract aspect, whereas with the figurative things, that inspires me by what object it could be.
Right, right. So you see yourself, you won't change, you won't be doing painting, because I sometimes think my work is getting big, maybe I should do small, maybe I should go for, you're so happy doing this.
Oh, I'm so happy doing this,
you?
yeah. Whether I sell it or not, I just keep on cranking it out.
Yeah.
And small, I think I'd like to do more small things, because the larger I get, if I have to take it to a show, I usually have a truck, so my limit is how much I can carry, or
Right.
use a dolly, and
Right.
and so
They're heavy too, these
yeah, a lot
pieces.
of them are. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Well, we're almost out of time, and I want to talk about the piece that you donated. Is this a
Oh yes, a
donation?
donation to the Northern Westchester Hospital pediatric uh, NICU unit is called, intensive care unit.
Okay.
And the waiting room outside these little children in intensive care, the parents would have to stare out at this rooftop, which was just blank.
Mm-hmm.
And so my daughter-in-law, who was the president of the junior league,
Mm-hmm.
they came up with a plan to build a garden up there, a stone garden,
Mm-hmm.
and the centerpiece would be the sculpture, which
So
which
when you
was a
call it,
gigantic tree, the tree of tranquility.
Tree of Tranquility. I thought it
And
was Tree of Life.
the tree of, well, it's the garden of life and the tree of tranquility.
Oh, that's
so
really nice. And what is the composition on that?
the idea behind that was not only the structure but the leaf sections. They spin on an axis, so they are affected by the wind. This is my second kinetic,
Oh, okay.
and they do really spin a
So
lot.
do they spin
Yeah,
like this?
spin
each
laterally.
one? Do they
And-
make a noise when they spin then? Or?
No, it's just
Quiet?
that the fact that even a slight breeze makes them flutter like like
Yeah.
a sapling or something.
But they wouldn't. It doesn't make a noise when it does.
No,
No.
it's
Oh,
just
okay.
the spinning,
I have to
and
go-
it looks like rustling leaves in a
Yeah,
tree.
that's great. That's great. And so when we go to the Northern Westchester show, we have to
Yes.
go up there and
Let's
see it.
go up third floor,
Third floor.
and the pediatric NICU.
Yeah, they're great there. They have other artists' work
Yes.
that they have on. Yeah, it's terrific. Well, Doc, this has been
You're
terrific.
kidding, it's not a half an hour, is it?
It is.
It was-
It is. It's been
That's
very
amazing.
interesting. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you
coming.
for having me. Great. May I shake your hand?
Yes, you may.
Thanks very much.
And thank you for watching.